So let's talk about managing your time and how to identify if a customer is wasting your time. We're all given the same amount of time each day, and I know quite a few of you, and myself included, at the end of the day, you sit back and you wonder what has been accomplished, and sometimes you feel like the day has just run away completely and you don't feel like you've accomplished anything. We're all given the same amount of time, and we need to learn to manage how we use it. So for me, the first thing I need to do for myself is to create a schedule. I find that on a Sunday evening, that's when I sit down and I plan my week. I have a written calendar that I have, and I sit down and handwrite everything that I know that I need to accomplish for the week, the places that I need to be, meetings that I need to attend, or if customers that I need to see that are already on my schedule. And I use Google Calendar as well. So even though I have a handwritten calendar, I will also take the time to put everything into a Google Calendar, or you may want to use Outlook, or there are many other apps that are Droid and Apple friendly that you can sync with your phone, sync with your desktop or your laptop, so that it will send you reminders of where you need to be or provide you with a schedule for your day. I tend to do that on a Sunday evening for the whole week, but then on a daily basis, if the first thing in the morning, I will print out my calendar as well, so that I have a visual of where I need to be, and if anything happens in the day, then I can adjust accordingly. Also, a to-do list I find is very helpful. The beginning of each day, take the first few minutes of the morning to write your to-do list, calls that you have to follow up on, places that you need to do, or personal things that you need to accomplish. Planning your route, if you know that you're going to be in a specific area with a customer, and that's also an area that you need to manage something on a personal level, you could probably include that in your schedule so that you're not driving back and forth. Also, it's important to spend at least 50% of your time engaged in the thoughts and actions that will produce the results that you're looking for. And sometimes you even need to schedule time for interruptions. Plan time to be pulled away, because you may just get that call that takes you 30 minutes instead of 10 or 5. Maybe it's an issue that arose that you weren't aware of, or you had no idea was going to be coming down the pipeline. But if you kind of schedule time accordingly, then when that happens, you don't get all flustered and it ruins your day. Going back to the to-do list, it's always advisable and recommended to put the toughest things on your to-do list as the first priority. They like to refer to it as eating that frog first, because once you've eaten the frog, then the rest of the day can go smoothly. I also like to think of frog as fully relying on God, so then you know that God is in it to help you through it as well. So take the first few minutes to plan it and do that. Also, before every call that you make with a customer, take the first 5 minutes or so to figure out what your strategy is. If it's a cold call that you're going to do, have a script basically in your head of what you're going to say. If it's an expired listing, or if it's somebody that you've contacted before, just know what the end result is that you want to accomplish, so that you can formulate that conversation prior to making that call. Sometimes in the day too, you probably need to put up a do not disturb sign if you are, if you want to block that time, an hour or two, where you're just going to be making phone calls consistently based on your to-do list. Sometimes you need to let the people around you know, this is your time to focus on that task. In addition to that, a great time waster, and I know that I've fallen culprit to it on many occasions, is social media. Responding to social media, I don't know if you're like me, where you have the alerts that come up on your phone, and depending on who it is, it's so easy to get sucked into it, and before you know, quite a few of your day, quite a few minutes of your time has been eaten up by reading through or responding to something. So one of the things that I've done is remove those alerts from my phone so it's not an interruption and it doesn't pull me away that way. I've seen other people who have alerts for games on their phone, like Candy Crush or Farmville, when your animals need to be fed or something. In the middle of your workday, that is definitely a time waster. Other distractions, Pinterest is great. You get some great ideas on there, but when you're focusing on your task and you have your to-do list to work through, one of the things that you can probably do in your day is to set a specific time frame in that day. It may not be every day, maybe half an hour or so on your social media, or you may choose to do it a couple days a week. The beauty of the social media too is that you can always schedule it ahead of time. There are different capabilities in there where instead of being on the social media page every day, I could set it for Thursday to send a message out to happy birthday to someone, or something that I know is coming up. I can make a comment, and I can set it and forget it, as they say with the George Foreman girls and so on. But those are big time wasters. Remember that sometimes there are just days where it's impossible to get everything done, but it's like the 80-20 rule. Focus on the tasks that you know that you can be most productive on, and take care of those things first. Okay, now let's talk about identifying time wasters. I think it's important that before we deal with any customer at all, we need to have a process in place. Maybe you need to visualize it by writing down what that step-by-step process is. But something that has worked for me is during that first conversation, just kind of get an idea of what this customer has in mind. How soon do they need to purchase this house? If you speak to someone on the phone and they're ready to go and look at houses right now, but when you start having a conversation with them, they're not thinking of moving until within the next year or the next 6 months or so, you need to gauge those things in that initial conversation. With any conversation that you have with a customer, the primary objective, of course, is to get that appointment. And at that first appointment, that's very key, and you need to ask those really deep questions as well. One of the first and most important things is to find out who are the key players. For instance, if you're sitting down with a first-time home buyer, a young person or a young couple, you want to know that they are ready, willing, and able to make those decisions on purchasing a home. I've come across situations with first-time home buyers where we've started the process, and then in the middle of the process, I found out that a parent had to be a part of the decision making. They had to be also given approval on the home that you've shown, etc., and it wasted a lot of time. So it's very key to find out who these key players are. If they're going to be needing financial assistance from a relative or somebody who has to be there as well to give input. Who has to physically see the house. A lot of times you set appointments with one partner and both need to make a decision, and you have to go back again when both are present. So in that first conversation, in that first appointment interview, find out as much information as you can, what they're looking for, who are the decision makers, etc. It's also a primary time for you to sit down and have them sign a buyer-broker agreement. With a buyer-broker agreement, even though we do not have a cancellation fee in there as a company, you need to determine whether or not you will sit down with them and have the buyer-broker agreement up front. Most times, if someone signs an agreement with you, they're less likely to see a sign somewhere and call another agent to do business with that agent, because there's some sense of loyalty with a buyer-broker agreement. So that's also key in avoiding wasting your time in that first interview. Also, are they pre-approved or pre-qualified? You can't put the cart before the horse. You need to know up front if they're in need of a loan, if they've already contacted a loan officer, if they've at least started that process. We have a wonderful group of approved lenders that we've worked with in the past, and many of them now make sure to go through a lot of the paperwork with the buyers before even giving that approval letter, so you know right away whether or not they're able to move forward. It really doesn't make any sense to jump in your car and start driving around until you know for sure whether this customer is a ready, willing, and able buyer. A lot of our sellers are very educated and very versed on the buying process as well. And a lot of them will tell you up front that they do not want you waste their time showing their homes unless this person is already pre-approved. So that's one way of eliminating time wasters. Another thing that you need to do is in the showing process, once you've passed the pre-approval and the pre-qual period, in the showing process, you can save time by bringing your A game, doing all the research that you need on the particular property that you're showing, so that when you get there and they have questions, have those answers ready. Lots of times they want to know, because of the insurance issues, how old is the roof? When was the septic cleaned out? How recent was that done? What are the taxes on the property? Is the property in a flood zone? Have all that information as much as you can available. And a lot of those resources are provided to you through the MLS, through Realist, or even through the Public Records website, or IMAP. There are several different avenues for resources that you can go to get all that information prior to showing. A lot of our customers now get their own research through the internet, and it's always a interesting situation if your buyer comes in and they have more information about the property than you do. So bring your A game so that you don't have to say, okay, I'll have to get back to you on that, because again, that's adding time to your process. It's also a good idea to utilize different tools provided in Cloud CMA, the Buyer Tour. With the Buyer Tour, you have pre-printed pages of the properties that you're going to be showing your customer. And on the sheet, what I like about it is it has 5 stars on there, and a space is provided for them to write down things that they liked about the home. That way, you've shown a couple of houses, you want to eliminate whichever ones are not on their list, what are their priority ones, and the comments they had about it. It helps the process, because after the fact, you go to see so many houses and neither of you remembers features that they liked or not, and it's always good to have that written down to save you some time. On the other side of the coin, with a listing agreement, the same is true, where you need to bring your A game. Know the property inside out, research the history of it, find out from them what their next step plan is, because if they're ready to sell their home but they don't have a plan of their next step, where they're going to go, if you need to assist them with moving somewhere else, that helps to save your time as well. The most important step in eliminating time wasters is for you to be the one taking charge of your time. I've heard so many agents on the phone with customers, and they'll say, what time is good for you? You need to drive your time. Again, going back to the calendar, look at your calendar and have, before you make that phone call, have the times that you're available to meet with that customer. Instead of saying what time is available for you, say, I am available on Tuesday at 3 or Thursday at 5. And of course, whatever applies to you. But give them a choice of 2 set time frames that you know you have a good block of time in order to accomplish whatever task. Because the minute you let them be the one to drive the time, it can mess up your day and you get flustered in trying to accommodate someone and pushes everything off. So you need to be the one taking charge of your time. Also, even if a time has been confirmed with your customer for a listing appointment or to meet them to show a property, make that call again half an hour before or an hour before the appointment to make sure that 1, they remember, and 2, that they're still on the same schedule. Anything can happen to either of you in your day where changes have to be made. But it's nothing more frustrating than to make your way all the way out to a property, and then a customer to call and say they won't be able to make it again, or they have to be there a half an hour or an hour later. Be the driver of your time and take charge of your time. Remember, there are only 24 hours in a day, 86,400 seconds in a day. How are you going to take charge of it?